What does he get right? What does he get wrong? Today we're delving into the Exoterra Bearded Dragon Care Guide to see what they have. I'm David, this is the guide, welcome to DJL Exotics. We've created a couple of these guides already. They've done fairly well. There's been a few mistakes, mostly on cohabitation and heat rocks. Let's see if the bearded dragon can do any better, shall we? So let's get started. Bearded dragons are lizards of the Agama family, absolutely correct. They are about 7 centimetres long when they hatch and grow to their adult size of 45 to 60 centimetres in about a year. Yep, absolutely correct. They are very fast growing. They do grow quite big. A lot of people see them small in a pet shop and they do get quite large. You get them about 10 to 15 centimetres, but they can quadruple in size. Females are normally smaller than males. Yep, they come in a wide variety of colours, including shades of brown, grey and orange. Yes, so you can get deeper reds and, you know, there are things like that. Bearded dragons are so called because of their spiny throat projections, look similar to a human beard. The male's beard is typically darker than the female's and it can be puffed up in a display of dominance. Yes, so the beard will go black when they're angry or they're wanting to make a statement to kind of defend their territory. We had a female that did that, so I don't know whether it's strictly to the male or perhaps the female was misgendered. I didn't gender it myself. I just assumed what the breeder was doing because we only had one. We didn't intend to breed from her, so there we go. Their lifespan is 8 to 10 years. Slightly too short again. They did this with a leopard gecko and they said it's about 8 years. It's about 15 years for a bearded dragon from what I can remember. I haven't heard of any that have gone older than that. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Facts and information. Bearded dragons are native to Central Australia, where they are found in semi-arid woodlands and rocky deserts. Technically correct, but they're also found across Australia, so there's some on the coast. There's actually several species of bearded dragon. And Rankins is actually a subspecies of bearded dragons. Technically, they're all kind of very closely related, and they all have different habitats and different places in Australia where they live. So it's a little bit generic there, but the ones that you probably find in a pet shop are either the Rankins or the central bearded dragon. I don't think you get many coastal, but yeah, they are found in semi-arid woodlands and rocky deserts. Yeah, that's pretty much accurate there. They are skilled climbers, yes, and spend the morning and evening basking on an exposed rock or branch. Yep, and also fence posts if they're near any farmland or any habitation. That's quite common. They take refuge from the hottest part of the day. Again, yep, that's absolutely correct, yes. Benefits of keeping. Bearded dragons adapt well to being handled and one of the easiest lizards to tame. So that was an interesting one because, yes, they do adapt well to captivity. Whether or not they're easy to tame or whether they tame their humans is a bit of a debate. I know bearded dragons who are absolutely in control of their owners because they're demanding what food they get, they're demanding what time they come out. Bearded dragons can sometimes get very particular about what's around them, even in your room. So if you move your coat rack, for instance, they can get very angry about that and very upset. They don't like change. They're very, very demanding in some respects. Our bearded dragon only wanted to eat insects and would hide its salad in the enclosure, would pick up the bowl, throw the food in the bowl, the salad in the bowl behind a decoration you couldn't see, put the bowl back exactly where it was, and next time you come in, start patting the bowl as if to say, I've eaten my salad, can I have insects now? So bearded dragons are highly intelligent. They adapt well to captivity. They understand humans are food and humans are cleaning, and many of them will be handled quite well, and many of them will sit on your shoulder or even go out with you. They're a great species. However, I wouldn't say taming is the right word for it. They are very manipulative in some respects. Gentle, regular handling of young ones is beneficial as a dragon will learn to recognise its keeper, as we said, yeah. They are hardy and relatively easy to keep. That's the one thing I would disagree with. Bearded dragons aren't very forgiving of mistakes, so they need a high level of UV. If you don't give them that, then they can get MBD quite quickly. They can need regular baths in order to get all the scales off when they're going into shed. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. If they don't eat properly, they can get vitamin nutrition deficiency. There's a lot that can go wrong with them. And that's part of the problem. Not only that, is that in the wild, 70% of them have the asymptomatic or are a carrier of a type of disease that means that probably every single one in captivity does, because of the way that they were bred in the past, especially in the UK, so there was a lot of what are called bedroom breeders, so they would have a couple in their room and they would breed them, and it was very indiscriminate. So that can be a big problem, because 1 in 10 of those will therefore display symptoms of it. It looks like MBD, but it isn't MBD, and so you're trying to treat it like MBD, and that won't work, and it shortens the lifespan of the bearded dragon, and out of those ones that catch it, about 90% of those ones will die. So you're talking about 9 out of every 100 bearded dragons is going to die within a year, because of bad breeding habits in the past. But again, it's that ease of care. Yes, if done right, it's easy, but you can say that for any reptile. They're not hardy. Anything could go wrong. They have good activity levels during the day. Well, they're diurnal, so that would be true, and an outgoing personality with interesting social behaviour. Yeah, okay, I'll give them that one. Males head bob rapidly in a display of dominance. Yeah, that is true. While females respond to a slower head bob. Yeah. Both sexes will wave a front leg to appease more dominant animals. That is true again. All of this makes them one of the best lizards for beginners to keep. Again, no, they're not the best. In actual fact, part of the problem is that it's not just their ease of care, it's also what you need to give them. So a bearded dragon really requires a 5-foot vivarium, which means you have to order one online, especially as they're adults. So if you think that they're getting to 60 centimetres, if you're putting them in a 4-foot, then you're giving them only twice their length. Really, you should be giving them at least 2.5, if not 3 times. So you could be looking at a 6-foot, really, to give them the space that they really require. Also, most 4-foots are only 1.5 foot deep online. You can get the 2-foot ones, but if it's only 1.5, then you can't even stretch out going deep. So I would personally sit there and say that they're not the best lizards for beginners to keep. On top of that, you've got UV, and that's one of the big problems, because if you don't replace the bulb regularly enough, that could cause MBD. If you don't get the temperature high enough, these guys require really high temperatures. If you don't get the dieting right, they're not easy. Leopard geckos, much easier. Anyway, so housing. A large Exoterra terrarium is suitable for 1 or 2 young bearded dragons. No. The problem is that bearded dragons will compete for resources. So in this case, it's going to be basking spots. In the wild, they've got lots of little basking spots they can go to, but in a vivarium, it will usually be limited to 1. So both of them are going to be trying to get that best basking spot, and that's where you're going to have dominance issues. That black beards, that head bobbing, it's going to create a lot of stress on the animals, and that's when you're going to lose your bearded dragons quite young. It's not the best idea. They can be kept singly, in pairs, or in groups. Again, that's absolutely not true. They can be kept singly, in pairs, or in groups. You're going to have that competition for resources. You're going to need a bigger enclosure if you had to do that, with only 1 male per group, as they will fight. And that's the thing, though. You can't. Not a lot of pet shops can guarantee the gender. If you go to a breeder, they often can, but there are mistakes. I would personally sit there and say that, yeah, 1 male per group, but it should be just 1 bearded dragon per group. Don't keep anything else with them. They will compete. That will cause stress. You can get injuries. Males are slightly larger than females and have a row of enlarged femoral paws running along the inner thigh. Yeah, that's the same as most reptiles. Groups will live happily together in large enclosures, while hatchings up to 4 to 5 months may be kept in a smaller terrarium. Totally, I'm just going to disagree with that. I've said it before, so we won't go through that. Subject to furnishings. Bearded dragons need a desert environment. That is absolutely correct. They are more desert than anything else. So Exoterra desert sand is ideal as a substrate. Yes, but I would personally go for a sand soil mix, because nowhere is really truly 100% sand, and a lot of commercial sand products are 100% sand, so it's not entirely natural. Remove all droppings and clean terrariums on a regular basis to prevent disease. Absolutely correct. And bearded dragon poop can smell really bad. It can be really messy, so be prepared if you want to get a bearded dragon that it's going to be smelly and it's going to be a messy deal. This is another reason why they're not a good beginner, because their poop smells really bad. Dragons do climb, and logs and rocks make good basking areas. Absolutely correct. Yep. You should be given that as long as they are fixed securely. Again, yeah, you don't want your logs or rocks to fall on them. A hide or something to shelter behind is essential. Yeah, this helps to prevent stress and allow a bearded dragon a safe haven from the outside world. The only problem is that if you've got multiples in there, they're all going to be trying to share the same hide, and that's where you're going to have dominance issues again and fights because they all want their best hide in the vivarium. Heating. A daytime basking area of around about 100 Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius is essential. Yeah, absolutely correct. They would need it really hot. As are cool areas ranging from 20 to 29. No extra night heat is needed for adult dragons. If a room stays above 16 degrees, a basking, yeah, that's right. It does get quite cold in deserts. Not a lot of people realise that. Deserts are very hot during the day, but get very cold at night. It's very extremes, and these reptiles are designed to survive in those. So as long as you've got that 16 degrees in your house, then that's absolutely fine. There's no extra heating needed. Basking lamp is the best heat source as dragons are attracted to light. This is actually correct. I talk about heat mats with a lot of the snakes and a lot of the amber geckos, but with a bearded dragon you have to have the overhead heating because that is the way that they are naturally designed. They have a way of detecting the UV and the heat source from above, and they will go to the best spot based on that detection. So an overhead heating source is absolutely essential. You cannot skimp on that. And it is based on light. So a ceramic heat bulb is not the best solution. It has to be one of the halogen light ones as well. A basking lamp is the best source of heat strength to attract to light. Yeah, Exoterra Sunglow basking spotlights are suitable. Yeah, set in a timer to give 12 hours light and heat per day. Yeah, I would say 12 hours is probably about right. Larger enclosures may need ceramic heaters as well. Yes. If you've got them in a 5 or 6 foot, that would probably be essential. And as you should be keeping them in a 5 or 6 foot, I guess that's what you need to do. Wire mesh guards should be fitted over all heat sources. Absolutely correct. In order to prevent thermal burns. Absolutely right. Yep. An Exoterra heat rock may also be used. No! They've got the heat rock back in. Oh, we had the heat rock in the previous two. No, okay, the heat rock is not a suitable heating product for any reptile. Essentially, any heat source needs to be connected to a thermostat. So with the bulbs, it needs to be a dimmerstat. With a heat mat, it needs to be a thermostat, an on-off or pulse thermostat. A heat rock cannot be controlled. You can't put the probe on it, which controls the temperature. These things get really, really hot and cause thermal burns. So in the previous sentence, we said to prevent thermal burns, and then the next sentence is recommending a product that can actually cause it. Heat rocks are notoriously bad for causing thermal burns on reptiles. And also, when I was doing the research for another video, and I was looking at a heat rock, it actually said they have been known to cause fires as well. So they I don't know if that's 100% true, so I'm just going to put a disclaimer here. But when I searched heat rocks on Google, there was a warning that they are known to cause fires. So something else to bear in mind. Choose an appropriate size for your terrarium and position towards one end of it. Yeah, you can use the heat rock, but just don't turn it on, I guess. Underneath the Reptoglow 10 bulb and basking lamp, yeah. This allows for a required temperature gradient. Digital thermometers should be placed near the basking spot and at the cool end of the terrarium to check the temperatures. No mention of thermostats or dimmerstats. And it's interesting that they don't do that because they're actually high value products. They'd get more use out of that than recommending the heat rock from a business point of view anyway. In the autumn and winter, as daylight hours are shorter, some adult bearded dragons seek cooler areas and become dormant for weeks or even months. This is called brumation. Yeah, this is absolutely correct. Some do that, some don't. Some do, some don't. Feeding will cease, and once they have begun to sleep all day, background temperatures may be safely reduced to 16 to 21 degrees. And basking lamps turn down until the dragon awakens and start basking and feeding again in early spring. Yeah, that's a simple brumation. Lighting. As well as needing good bright lighting in the form of a spotlight, dragons need ultraviolet light UVA for normal vision activity levels and UVB for normal calcium metabolism. That was really badly pronounced by me. Which must be supplied by specialist reptile UV lamps and tubes. Absolutely correct. These guys really do need that UVB. I talked before about the leopard gecko and in the Berber skin guide about it being 7%. This is for one where you need that 10 to 12% one. These guys come from very high UV ranges and they bask in these. This is what they bask in all the time. A high UVB fluorescent tube, such as the Exoterra, ideally fitted with reflectors, should be used to supplement the lighting, yes. These should also be fitted to a timer to give 12 hours light stroke day. Yeah, I would do that because these are diurnal, so they want that light on all for those 12 hours. These must be replaced every year. Yeah, nowadays every year, but there are still some models that need to be replaced every 9 months, 6 to 9 months. So yeah, the biggest problem is, and this is the next bit, they do get this absolutely right, and this is really, really important, is that even though there's a spelling mistake here. Even though they may look fine, is what I think it's supposed to say, as all fluorescent bulbs lose their UV radiation within 1 year. Yeah, absolutely true. If you actually have a UV monitor and you monitor the UV output of a lamp over a year, it starts to degrade lower, lower and lower, but the actual light that we see doesn't actually change. So that is absolutely correct. Exoterra canopies provide an easy solution to lighting your terrarium. Yes, if you're using a glass one, they would be absolutely fine. I actually do have new types. They're not Exoterra, but they're a different type. That's actually a canopy that you screw into the top of a vivarium. Absolutely fantastic. Water. A shallow bowl of clean water must always be provided. Yep, dragons can take time to learn to drink from a dish. Yeah, that is true. They're quite bad. As they are attracted to water movement, a dripper system may work. Yep, or they can be regularly offered a syringe filled with water. I wouldn't personally do that because that teaches the bearded dragon to rely on you and not go and get the drink when it's thirsty. So if it's thirsty and it doesn't have a way of telling you, it could get grumpy with you. Personally, try to get it to drink from the water. Or they can be regularly offered dripped from a lizard's head or in front of its nose. This way they learn to lap from a nozzle. Babies can be gently sprayed and will drink with droplets. It's not terrible advice, it's just not what I would recommend. Diet and feeding. Bearded dragons are omnivores, yes. So they eat both insects and plants. A balanced diet must include green leaves, e.g. spring greens, kale, dandelion, watercress, vegetables, chopped red pepper, peas, grated butternut, squash, carrot, insects, black and brown crickets, locusts, mealworms. Feed juveniles twice a day. Offer adults fresh greens food daily and insects every 1 to 2 days. I guess that's probably accurate in a lot of ways. There was a debate when we have the bearded dragon about feeding them every single day because a lot of them getting overweight, so people were overfeeding them. You've got to make sure you're getting that balance right. What it doesn't say is roaches, which these guys love. I'm not quite sure on kale. I probably won't feed kale. Spring greens are absolutely fine. Dandelion they love. Watercress is another one I wouldn't really be sure. Florets, lettuce, little gem's really good. Yeah, there's quite a few things you can feed them. What it hasn't said is that it depends on the age of the bearded dragon on how much you feed it. So when they're babies, it has to be about 70% insects and about 30% fruit and veg. But when they get to adults, it needs to completely stop. And this is part of the problem, is that the adult ones have become addicted to the insects, so they prefer to eat the insects. In actual fact, for health and benefit, they actually need to eat more greens. So that is where the big problem comes in. What I would say is that up to a year, 70% insects, 30% greens, and then swap it around, but gradually try to do it. So get to a point around about 9 months where it's 50-50. An occasional fruit treat can be given, e.g. apples, bananas, kiwis, grapes. Our one loved blueberries, just as a thing. Too much can cause diarrhea, absolutely true, but then again, they have very smelly poo. Baby dragons can become seriously impacted gut blockage by large insects and should be fed only smaller crickets, no longer than the distance between the dragon's eyes. Absolutely correct. Not sure about the blockage. I think that's just generally what bearded dragons are like, and a warm bath will sort that out. They should not be fed mealworms, but you just said mealworms in the previous paragraph. Mealworms are okay in small amounts. They are very fatty and they can cause fatty liver disease in bearded dragons, but an occasional treat of mealworms is exactly what they would have in the wild, and therefore nothing wrong with that. All insects should be well fed so that they contain maximum nutritional value when fed to the dragon. Absolutely correct. They normally come with food such as brand in the container. Not always the case in the UK, but you can give them food, give them the same things that you give them the salad items that you give them to the bearded dragon, any carrot, potato peelings, those sorts of things. Don't give carrot and potato to your bearded dragon, but do give the that to your insects. Really, really good. In fact, potato is really good because it's high in vitamin C, which is very good. Once or twice a week before offering them to the lizard. Yeah, insects should be dusted with good quality reptile mineral vitamin supplement powder, yes, and they need to be dusted, so that's a little bit of a harder one to do. Exoterra cricket feeders are perfect as a container to dust them in and then use to allow slow release into the terrarium. Problem is that crickets tend to lick the dust off quite quickly, so that's one of the big problems. Dragons will benefit from having a small dish of calcium. Yeah, I would personally do this, calcium carbonate powder or grated cuttlefish in the terrarium. I would get Nutrol because it also has lots of vitamin A supplements and other supplements that are required. Exoterra make a complete dry pellet diet for both juvenile and adult bearded dragons. It's not very exciting for them though. Yes, I think some people do use them, but I personally don't. Or wouldn't, sorry. Shedding. Bearded dragons shed their skin naturally as they grow. This will be up to 8 to 10 times in the first year, yeah, pretty much, and several times a year after that. They go off their food for a few days before shedding. It will peel off in strips. Mist them with water will help with this process. Yes, or you can either bath them. So, that's the end of the guide. What do we think? It's not bad. Again, cohabitation, heat rock, feeding is alright. Spot on with the UV, really. They do need that. The heating is mostly correct. Again, it's that heat rock. I wouldn't say they're a beginner reptile. I have talked about that in another video, but apart from that, it's quite good. But the one thing I would say that it is missing is that size of the enclosure. For a bearded dragon, I would really recommend a 5 foot. You can't really get one and that's less than that, and I don't think Exoterra, do correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they do a 5 foot. They do a 4 foot deep, which okay might be good for Rankins because they're smaller, but for a typical central bearded dragon, I don't think it would be big enough. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment on the video and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you on the next one.